Class, the Yu-Gi-Oh meta just got a lot more interesting with Justice Hunters, and I'd be a liar if I say I wasn't just a little bit excited. My team and I have done a ton of testing under this new Yu-Gi-Oh format, and one of the biggest things I want to point out is that this isn't the OCG. There are still so many strategies, new combos, and even things that the OCG couldn't have at the stage of the game. We have completely different outliers and way more situations that impact our Yu-Gi-Oh card game. It actually could be a really exciting format. Today, big dogs, I'm going to be breaking everything down that you need to know about the new format, and of course talking about the best decks in Yu-Gi-Oh. Let's go ahead and jump on in. What's going on with y'all, big dogs? And it is an amazing day for Yu-Gi-Oh! I hope that your day phenomenal. But if it isn't, don't let what happened at the beginning of your day ruin the rest of your day. And in case you guys didn't know, it is that time where, it's Update Monday! A particular time where I trick you into thinking that this is a Yu-Gi-Oh video, but in actuality, I want you to become a better person overall. Today for Update Monday, I want to talk about something that is really, really important to me. Chat, I am still a Do you not see this To Pimp a Butterfly album in the background? I am a Big dogs, I was born in Los Angeles, California during the Watts riots. They actually had to shut down Killer King Hospital during that time, so I was born in Paramount. I grew up in Watts, East LA, Long Beach, and South Central LA. But why exactly am I giving you this information? I want to reinforce that Yu-Gi-Oh players come from all different types of backgrounds and ethnicities. And while we may have different cultures and values and beliefs, one thing that brings us all together is our love for this game. I think that it is incredibly important to hold on to your beliefs and your values no matter who you are or what situation you're in. And while you guys do get to see one side of the TheCaliEffect, one thing that I've noticed is that you guys don't get to know who Leon is. I will make a more concerted effort not only to share you guys with my heritage and culture, I will also make another effort to be able to understand yours. I think that's a really important part of life, stepping outside of your box to learn other things, just like how in this particular format, we're gonna have to learn a lot and really fast. You see, there's been a huge change in Yu-Gi-Oh that's been really subtle, and I think I should probably make a video about it. If you guys haven't noticed, certain card effects or certain spell effects, like Mitsurugi prayers, for example, can be activated over and over again. And if that were the one and only instance, I think we could look it off as something insignificant. But the fact that there are multiple cards now coming out that have multiple effects that you can activate multiple times in a turn, it shows that Yu-Gi-Oh is on another verge of power creep. And I think the best way to look at it is to actually go back and look at the North American World Championship qualifiers. There's so much information to gain from that. As you guys can see here, both Malice and Mitsurugi did dominate the top tables, but this is only a couple of weeks after Battles of Legends Monsters Revenge. And one of the more important things is because of Battles of Legends Monster Revenge, we actually got to see some really powerful decks like Orcus and Gem Knight take significant placing. Another thing to keep in mind is that Duelist Advance also did come out the week before, and Vanquish Soul has taken the third most represented spot. Even though it is all at the bottom cut, it's still representation. There's even Lunalight getting inside of the top 32, which actually supports my theory. Yugioh and Malice are pretty strong Yu-Gi-Oh decks, but seeing that those decks are no longer dominant, the more new cards that we have coming into the meta, I don't think it would be far-fetched to not consider them as the best decks in Yu-Gi-Oh, but a benchmark on what decks need to do to be able to compete. Yu-Gi-Oh strategies nowadays have to have multiple points of interaction and also make hand traps look incredibly silly. While they can be weak to certain powerful Yu-Gi-Oh cards, they have to have a game plan in that particular situation, shall that card does arise. Shall that card does arise? What do I sound like, Shakespeare? Shall that card arise? I am still a So while I do think that both Yugioh and Malice will still be fairly strong in competitive Yu-Gi-Oh decks, I wouldn't be surprised if these strategies started fading out of existence, mainly because most professional pro Yu-Gi-Oh players, they always try to play what is the most effective Yu-Gi-Oh deck at their disposal. Yugioh and Malice fit that bill, but with the new cards coming out, it's starting to seem that other strategies are starting to catch up. And speaking of catch up, both Yugioh and Malice have a few weaknesses that will be exploited inside of the next format. Neither Yugioh or Malice can play on turn 0. Basically what I mean by turn 0 is that even when your opponent goes first, you still have your main cards to be able to interact with them, not cards like hand traps like your legit main deck. It doubles down even worse for Yugioh and Malice because these two Yu-Gi-Oh strategies can't even use the turn 0 cards as an engine. K9 is going to be a really popular engine that just so happens to be Xseed, but if you're playing Yugioh, you oftentimes lock yourself into rank 4 monsters. Malice will oftentimes lock itself into Link monsters, so it becomes incredibly awkward to be able to incorporate some of the new cards being played. But another big weakness is that both of these decks have is being able to interrupt the monster that is being placed to the side of the field. Through our hours and hours of playtesting, we soon realized that Malice kind of sucks. And the reason why I say this is because if you can get rid of Malice monsters without putting them into the graveyard, the deck can really struggle on the follow-up play. And pretty much the exact same thing could be said about Yugioh. Back then, these strategies only had to compete with hand traps, which still left them the body on their field. But these new Yu-Gi-Oh decks have ways to get rid of Yugioh and Malice's cards without them being able to gain further benefits from it. One of them is Vanquish Soul, which I think is going to be one of the best decks in the game easily. Like we showed in the North American World Championship qualifier, Vanquish Soul was the third most represented deck. But this was before the K9 cards inside of Justice Hunters to add an entirely different layer. Vanquish Soul Holy Sue is a card that can be played on your opponent's turn, summoning itself to the side of the field, but this card also has the potential to steal your opponent's monster, which completely erases the body and sometimes even the effect. Then there's the K9 cards, which players should really be perceptive of their effects. K9 effects not only trigger when cards are activated in the hand, they can also be triggered when cards activate in the graveyard, like Fiendsmith cards or even Mitsurugi. What players should really be watching out for is K9 Azuna being able to summon itself and send K9 Lupus to the graveyard, which allows them to be able to quickly Xseed summon into any rank 5 or most rank 5s in the game. This is the turn 0 interaction that I was talking about that's going to be happening, that's going to be really important in Yu-Gi-Oh! With an array of rank 5 options that you can summon on your opponent's turn thanks to K9 Lupus, the deck actually has a way to be able to combat both Yugioh and Malice at the exact same time. And with the emergence of the K9 monsters, hand traps have almost became useless, and this might be a good thing. About a month ago, I made a video talking about hand traps and how they're not in a great spot. The K9 cards seem to double down on this effort, though I'm not 100% sure if it's a bad thing anymore. You see, just the presence of these cards are going to change how Yu-Gi-Oh players approach their deck building. Cards like Effect Veiler and Infinite Impermanence were already cards that were on their way out. It might still feel necessary to play because of Paradise Smasher, but you're gonna have a hard time playing against some of the other decks. Keep in mind, both Yugioh and Malice can make you look really dumb for playing those cards. And if you thought that that was bad, the new deck Yummy would probably make you feel even dumber. Yummy feels like one of those unhand trappable Yu-Gi-Oh decks, and I want to highlight one of their best cards in Yummy Surprise. This card can be activated up to 3 times per turn and can get rid of 2 cards your opponent controls, special summon a Yummy monster from your hand or graveyard, or return a field spell to your hand to go get another one. This follows the trend of Yu-Gi-Oh cards starting to be able to be used multiple times in a turn and also having really powerful effects. In previous Yu-Gi-Oh, this would have been 2 to 3 different cards, but now that they're combining it into one spell card, they're consolidating all of the resources, allowing you to play different cards. Yummy on first sight doesn't really seem like a strong Yu-Gi-Oh deck. Their effect monsters seem odd, being able to special summon themselves by controlling a Link 1 or Synchro 2 monster, and also having little niche effects when they're normal summoned or special summoned, and gaining another ability when they're summoned by a Synchro monster. And their Synchro monsters also don't seem really strong either. They all have a really big effect to be able to special summon Yummy monsters from the graveyard when your opponent uses a card or effect, with one being able to add Yummy monsters from your deck to your hand, the other being able to special summon negated Yummy monsters to your side of the field, and the last one being able to flip your opponent's monsters face down. But where this deck gets its villainy from is its Link 1 monster, a monster that allows you to be able to synchro summon during your opponent's turn by paying 100 life points, and then when you start to realize that your Yummy synchro monsters can treat Link 1 monsters as tuners, that's when the game starts to become a different ball game for this deck. Yummy really specializes in not only dodging hand interruptions, it's also really good at playing that slow grind game, gaining resources as time goes on and overwhelming the opponent with its synchro summons. This deck is huge simply because it challenges how players play Yu-Gi-Oh yet again. If you're going to throw those hand interruptions to be able to stop Malice, Yugioh, and Vanquish Soul, well, those cards won't really work against Yummy. Also, since Yummy doesn't need to use hand interruptions itself, it's the perfect counter to K9 cards. It still does have those interruptions that address both Yugioh and Malice, flipping your opponent's monsters face down, meaning that they won't be able to gain any additional value, but you also can't use them for Link or Xseed summons. And now, as you can see, it's really starting to tie in how Justice Hunters is going to completely change Yu-Gi-Oh, but those aren't going to be the only decks in the game. You see, in the OCG, both Yummy and K9 were pretty much the best decks in the game. But one thing that I do want to point out is that engines like Fiendsmith and Kashtira were completely hit, making them unplayable. In the TCG, that's not a thing. Mitsurugi is still incredibly powerful too, and also doesn't exist in the OCG. In fact, I think it can be an argument that Mitsurugi is the stronger part of Yugioh Mitsurugi. Especially after the hits, it feels that way. So far, if we're talking about the best decks in the game right now, I think that both Malice and Yugioh are placeholders. They're decks that can easily be power crept and probably will be power crept with either the ban list or the next Dooms of Dimension set. K9 as an engine can be really good for decks like Crystron and Cyber Dragon, but will probably be best suited for Vaquisol because of its ability to be able to play on turn 0 and interact with the opponent. Yummy hands down is the ultimate counter to K9, without needing to activate card effects in the hand to proc the K9's effects, and being a deck that's really good against hand traps itself, it's a very strong contender. My fifth option should seem to come out of left field, so I want you guys to let me know down below in the comment section what are your starting 5 for right now, but something that shouldn't come out of left field is these Raven Wing sleeves. That's right, big dogs, we are on our last leg of Raven Wing version 3, and I have discounted every single one because I want them out of my house and into a home that will enjoy them. Not only do we have the #1 sleeves in the entire world, these cheapest sleeves just got a little cheaper. So big dogs, make sure you go to TheCaliEffect.com and take advantage of that summer sale that we have going on. There are so many things that you could be picking up on. The last strategy I think has been slighted for way too long and is starting to really develop into a Yu-Gi-Oh strategy that is very powerful. Memento is the best deck in Yu-Gi-Oh that people never see coming. Understandably, Memento is a very hard strategy to play. But the bonus thing about Memento is that it has never been a hand trap Yu-Gi-Oh deck and has always fared well when going into boards. But also through our testing, we realized that this is just one of the most ridiculous decks in Yu-Gi-Oh, simply because of player skill. You see, I have a theory about Yu-Gi-Oh players, if not just human theory, that players will always pick the path of least resistance. Memento can be a very unforgiving deck when you make mistakes with, as opposed to some of the other strategies that we mentioned that will just be simply stronger than the other decks in the last waves. Now, it could 100% still be me coping, but I think the deck is incredibly strong. From my perspective, it has all of the tools to be able to succeed in this Yu-Gi-Oh format: the consistency, the ability to play around hand traps, and the flexibility to play multiple different engines. But like I said before, I want to hear what you guys have to say about what are the best decks in Yu-Gi-Oh and what are you most interested about. So again, class, for your homework is let me know what you guys think, and also be sure to check out these videos so I can catch you on the next one.